Learn how to avoid being influenced into doing something that you don't want to do. Stay tuned. Hey, this is Damon from NLP Gym. Neuro-linguistic programming is the study and the technology of creating the life that you desire. And for the past several years, I've been learning and mastering NLP so that I could create the life that I desire. And now, so that I can help you create the life that you desire. So if that sounds good, please click subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can get these videos on a regular basis. There are many ways that we are influenced to do things that we don't want to do. I'm only going to go into a few of them here because this is a very broad topic. There's a lot that I could probably create an entire program around this. So I'm just going to focus on a few here. The reason why we're influenced to do things, especially things that we don't want to do, is because we lack clarity about what it is that we want. And that may sound very general, because it is. One of the things that feels very uncomfortable for us, for the human species, is to be confused about something or to not know something, especially when posed with a question. So when we're posed with a question we don't know the answer to or that confuses us, we go in search looking for a way out of this. We're more interested in getting out of that uncomfortable feeling of being confused. And this will make you very, very susceptible to being influenced. So if I don't know what it is that I want, I'm going to look for a suggestion. I'm going to look for something outside of myself. I'm going to look for help. And an influencer who is very crafty about influencing, they will make it seem like it's your idea. Even if they weren't subtle about it, they could simply say something like, well, I think you should do this, or I think you should do that. Now, if you feel like they have some gain out of it, that they're exploiting you, or that they're trying to use you, you would probably turn that down. But if they're in good rapport with you, which a person who's very good at influence will do, if they're in really good rapport with you and they can make their suggestions sound like it's not for their gain, but they're trying to help you, then you will likely take their suggestion. You're looking for any way out of the confusion. You're looking for any way out of the chaos, because confusion and chaos make us feel very uncomfortable. So again, it's that lack of clarity that puts us into a state of confusion and chaos. And when you're in confusion and chaos, that is the time that you are most susceptible to being influenced. And it's also just not having enough information, not enough knowledge, not enough experience. If you think about who are the most easily influenced people, young people. The younger they go, the younger in age you go, the easier it is to influence them. Why? Because they lack reference experience. I'll come back to that in a moment. I'll talk more and give you an example of what I mean by lacking reference experience. But I want to continue on about confusion and chaos and how that works when people are using it to influence and persuade. Some of the most influential and persuasive people ever use this tactic of confusion. Now, some people use it in good ways. Milton Erickson actually used it. In fact, when I told Steve Andreas that I had identified this pattern that I see in very influential people, even cult leaders, of using confusion or confusing people and then giving them something to let them out of their confusion as a persuasive tactic. He said that actually Milton Erickson used to use this. So it can be used for good. Unfortunately, a lot of people use it for bad, and like I said, cult leaders will use it. I was observing a cult leader talking and noticing this pattern. And what this pattern is they will tell you something that aligns with you, that they will tell you something that you will agree with. And if they know you well, then they can just say things that they know you will agree with. If they don't know you well, they'll tell you very vague things that almost anybody has to agree to. Things like sort of moral platitudes, like, it's good to be nice to children, or simple things like that no one's going to disagree with. This is what we call pacing. So they will tell you things like that to get you agreeing with them, to align with them. And so you start to say to yourself, well, I agree with this person is making sense. And that's another way to pace as well, to just say things that make sense, that are not so easy you go, oh, okay, everybody knows that. It's a little bit more than that. It's maybe, the math problem that's a little bit harder than 1 + 1 = 2. And then gradually they start to say things that you don't quite understand. it's not gibberish. It's not like that. It's more like a concept or something that's a little jarring or shocking even. I heard one cult leader say something like, science is the biggest religion ever known. It's the greatest religion of humankind. And you hear something like that and you go, wait a minute, science and religion, those are two totally different things. So what does he mean? And that kind of draws you in. So you listen a little bit more to try to gain clarity about what he's talking about or she's talking about. You want to understand it a little bit better, because you were in this state of understanding at first, in agreement, and that felt good. And then now they're starting to lead you down this path of, well, I don't quite understand what he or she is saying. And so you tune in even more. And the more they talk, the more confusing it gets. And you're trying harder and harder to get back to that state of clarity, back to that state of understanding, and it's just not happening. It starts to get a little frustrating. What you're not realizing at this point is that they're creating this riddle that doesn't really exist. And you're caught up in it. You're in the middle of it. And the problem is you don't realize it. So you're looking for some sort of relief by means of understanding what the person is talking about. And just at that point where people are kind of hitting that threshold of like, I'm about to tune out because I don't understand what this person is talking about, suddenly they reveal some great answer to the riddle. So if you think about it like this, think about it, somebody tells you a riddle and it kind of ties your brain in a knot for a little bit. Then they give you the answer and then you feel that relief. Well, you never had to engage in that riddle to begin with. They could tell you the riddle and then you say, I don't care, like I'm not listening, or you can engage in it. Now, the thing that is so deceptive about this is that they start you off by that pacing. They start you off with the agreement. They start you off by making you feel good to understand and to be in agreement with someone. And then they break that agreement. They create the confusion. They create a riddle. And of course you don't have the answer to the riddle because they created it and it's not real. They're not going to give you the answer to life or anything like that, but they make it sound like they are. They make it sound like it's going to be the answer to whatever problem you're trying to solve, whatever pain you're trying to alleviate. So when they give you the answer, you have this release. You feel like you're back into that state. And it was after that state was being withheld from you, that state of comfort was being withheld from you. So now it feels even better to be in agreement with the person. It feels even better to be clear and understand what it is that they're talking about. And this is actually what drama is made of. This is why we go to see movies. We start off with a movie where the director, the actors, everyone involved has to make it believable to you. They have to create a world for you that you believe. So once you believe in it, now you've invested in it, now you've engaged in it, and then they start having all this conflict go on with the main character. And because you're invested in this, you go with that person. You could always just walk away and say, oh, it's just a movie, and walk out and not go through that frustration. But we want to go through that frustration. It's the drama. We know that there's going to be some payoff at the end. So we stick with it. And when we're done, we feel different feelings, different emotions. We might even feel a little exhausted. And this is the kind of experiences we actually want to engage in, especially with drama in a movie. It's safe. It's not your life. It's a made-up life. The same patterns work, though, when it comes to influencing people. And like I said, unfortunately, a lot of cult leaders use this type of tactic. Now, it can be used in good settings. It can be used therapeutically. Like I said, Milton Erickson used to use it. But you want to be careful of this. So if you feel like somebody's tying your brain in a knot, you might just realize that, hey, this is their knot. This isn't a life's question. This isn't something that really bothers me. But I decided to engage in this, and so I can disengage in it, and I can even call it out. I can say, hey, you know what? You're creating a riddle that is actually quite useless. And whatever the answer is an answer you've made up. So of course you know what this is, and this doesn't make anyone so enlightened because they can make up riddles and tie people's brains in knots and then give them the key or the answer so that they can feel that sudden release, and then also project that onto the person and say, oh, they gave me this clarity, they gave me this understanding, they enlightened me. And it's like, well, if you go back to before they started talking, you were just fine before that. And all they did was they created something that wasn't real, they confused you, and then now they unconfused you, so now you feel like you owe them something. It's like somebody taking you captive and then later releasing you, and then you being all happy and you want to stay with that person. It's kind of like Stockholm syndrome, where people fall in love with their captors because they're the ones who are keeping them alive. They can decide whether or not they live or die. Therefore, when they let you live, then you want to stay with them, or you've got this kind of strange bond and connection with them. The same thing happens with people who are very persuasive and use this tactic. So you want to be very careful if you find yourself engaging with someone like that. Just step back and go, okay, wait a minute, they're creating this. This is not something that's actually going on with me. So back to lack of reference experience, or back to just having lack of knowledge or experience with something. So let's say I am from an isolated country that's isolated from Western culture. So I've never drank soda pop before. And I land in America and I'm being bombarded by all of these marketing messages. Like I've never seen the internet, I've never seen TV, and I've never seen commercials, and I don't even know what to make of it. I don't even know how to categorize it in my brain. It's just like all these messages hitting me, and I don't know what any of these products are, or what they're saying, or what these messages are really about. So I'm just doing my thing. And let's say I go to a restaurant and somebody says, would you like Coke or would you like Pepsi? Now, being from an isolated country and never drank any soda, I don't know what Coke or Pepsi is. I know it's a drink, and that's about it. And remember, I feel under pressure because someone's asking me a question and it's something I don't know. It's something I can't really answer with knowledge. It's not something I can answer with personal experience. So I go into my mind and I'm searching, and suddenly I say, I want a Coke. They serve me a Coke and they say, well, how did you make that decision? And I would say, intuition. And this is a common answer that I get. And people really hate it whenever I start picking apart what intuition is. We are inundated with marketing messages so much that we tune them out. But that doesn't mean that the information isn't going in. And that's just it. It's actually more powerful when it's unconscious, because then we think that we just sort of what we call organically came up with something, or we used our intuition. We are bombarded with marketing messages every single day. So much so that we just tune them out. And when we tune them out, we erroneously think that if we're tuning them out, that we're not receiving that information. But actually, receiving that information and being unconscious about it actually makes those messages more powerful, because we're not consciously making a decision about something. We're taking that information, and whichever one is the most prevalent will win. In this case, I chose Coke because the marketing for Coke is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's so everywhere that we don't even notice it, that it's everywhere. But start looking for that, and you'll notice that Coke, their ads and their messages are way more prevalent than Pepsi. They spend more money. Not only are they the number one soda in America and have been, or in the world, and have been for many years, they spend the most money on marketing. So when that message gets in and it gets past your conscious filters and you're not consciously thinking about it, that information is actually more powerful, not less powerful. So if somebody came to this country and they had never drank soda, and they had been here for maybe a few weeks, and they were posed with that question, what would you like, a Coke or a Pepsi? And they had to make a choice. I would put my money on that they would choose Coke, because they had already received so much marketing, so many unconscious messages about drinking Coke and how it's good and how it's favorable. And that's what would probably surface in a person's mind whenever he had to go in search of looking for a choice, especially a choice that he has no reference experience for. So how do you use this information that I'm giving you to not be so easily influenced? Know what it is that you want. Be very clear about your desires. Be very clear about what you want, and chunk this down into every context of your life, at least every major context of your life. Know what you want. And if you're going into a situation where you're going to have to negotiate with someone, make sure you know what you want, where your boundaries are, what your thresholds are. Because if you're not clear and they are, chances are they're going to win, or they're going to influence you. And worst case scenario, they manipulate you to do something that you don't want to do, or they exploit you somehow. In pretty much every area of your life, whether that's a relationship, whether that's career, whether that, business, or hiring people, even signing up for someone's service, be very clear about what you want. I'm a big believer in eliciting values. I'm a big believer in eliciting criteria for those values, meaning you know what it is you value. You know what it is behind the object that you want. So you want the object, but you know what it is you want to fulfill by having that object or that accomplishment or achieving that goal. And once you know that, then know the criteria of what does it take for me to achieve that, or what does it take for me to experience that or fulfill that value. When it comes to choosing consumer goods, it's a good idea, especially if the consumer good is very expensive, like a car, like a house, anything that costs a lot of money. It's really important to do comparisons, to do a little bit of research and understand why you're making the choice that you're making, because a lot of us just make the choice that's based on who has the best marketing messages, who has the coolest looking ads. And that is not how you want to be making these decisions. So know what it is that you want out of something. Be very clear about that. And you can look at your buying habits now. Just start looking at them and ask yourself, why are you buying the things that you're buying? Why did you choose that particular product or that particular brand? And then again, also just be very wary of people who are trying to confuse you. Remember, they don't come right out trying to confuse you. They really pace you and make you feel like they agree with you, they're in alignment with you, and then it starts down that line of confusion, and right at the point where you just feel like you're about to throw your hands up and walk out, or ask them, please tell me, what's the secret, what's the answer? Then they'll come and give that to you, and then suddenly you project all of this, wow, this person's so enlightened and so wonderful, and they know stuff and they're smart. I want to follow that person because they have answers and they can clear up all of my confusion. Again, this is how cult leaders work. This is how some of the greatest persuaders and influencers persuade people and influence people. So now you know what to do and how to avoid it. Check out my website, nlp-gym.com. There you will find some free NLP training and some free hypnotic inductions that you can download immediately and get started on them right away. Also, I have just put together a free Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group. Most of my Facebook groups are linked to a product that I've created, an online training. And I do that so that I can give continued and ongoing support to my students. And what I was noticing is that a lot of people were trying to join these groups who hadn't purchased the training that it went with. And I hated turning these people away, so I created another group that does not require you to purchase anything. And you can join that group and you can post questions, and I'm active in it. I do answer those questions. And also every Sunday I will be going live to give more information about NLP, how to use it in your daily life, and also to answer your questions. So make sure you join that group. I'll put a link in the description here. And if you like this video, please click like right down here, and also leave a comment or a question. I will respond to you. And if you haven't already, please click subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can get these videos on a regular basis. Take care.